Want to know what successful people are doing with their money to create wealth and use it consciously for the greater good? Welcome back to Wealth Unplugged, the weekly podcast that gives you diamond tips on creating conscious wealth from changemakers, world shakers, and wealth creators. Now here's your host, Barbara Turley.
Hi there, and welcome back to Wealth Unplugged for another week. So this is the show where you get the key tips and strategies that I glean from the guests that I'm interviewing on my Feminine Wealth TV show every week. So I've been interviewing some amazing female entrepreneurs, female investors and change makers over there on the show. And then I do a quick podcast here, 10 or 15 minutes, where I just give you the key takeouts, I guess, that I took from the shows. So this week, I actually had such a good week this week because after my show last week, I was interviewing a girl called Lisa Messenger, who is the CEO and editor-in-chief of the new Renegade Collective magazine. And after I had her on the show, things just went wild all over social media, and I've had loads of hits on my website and loads of new people joining into the show. So if you're one of the newbies, then you're very, very welcome, and thanks so much for subscribing to the show. So on Feminine Wealth TV this week, I had another very, very interesting guest, and it was a South African woman who lives here in Sydney, and her name is Sia Hendry. And Sia is the founder and director of a brand called You by Sia, which is a group of skin and laser cosmetic clinics here all over New South Wales and in Sydney. And she's basically launched 5 of these clinics, and she's, launched her own product range, and she's on a path to just superstardom already, so she was amazing to have on the show. But a couple of things I really wanted to talk to Sia about, these kind of cosmetic and laser clinics, they're not that cheap to start, shall we say. These would be very, very expensive businesses to start, and a lot of people I've been talking to have been starting businesses that are either online or, some offline, but not as expensive as something like this, because you need quite a lot of equipment. There's lots that goes into a business like this. So really keen to see how she actually did it and how she got started, and how does one start in something like this. So a couple of things we talked about, like my first, key takeout that I really took from Sia. She really understands the importance of a supportive team, and she mentioned it a few times throughout the interview, so that's why I thought this would be a really important point to make. And as Sia said herself, you can't be a one-woman show and grow. Now, I'm going to say that again for the women out there that are listening. You can't be a one-woman show and grow when it comes to business. So basically, Sia recognized very early on that, in order for her to be successful and to actually grow the business, she was going to have a good and supportive team around her. So the first thing she did, she was very, very lucky in the beginning, because as she started the business, she actually had somebody who approached her and saw the value in her and wanted to, realised where Sia could take her brand. And this person wanted to be a sort of a silent business partner and mentor and financial backer in the business. So now I just want to be clear, Sia didn't actually go out and look for this particular investor. This investor found her. So what's fabulous about this is that, people always let the whole, but I don't have the money thing get in the way of their dreams. But I guess, as I always talk about, if you actually can work to really develop your inherent value, your own internal inherent value, the likelihood is that, the universe is going to conspire in some way to make it happen for you. And in terms of how it happened for Sia, one of her actual clients, who had got sick of waiting 3 months to get an appointment with her, approached her and said, look, if you ever want to start your own thing, I really think you should. I think you're brilliant at what you do, and I'm happy to be an investor in it. I mean, I know we'd all love that. That's pretty fantastic. But I guess, they came together and this amazing business partnership was formed. But the key part about it really is that, again, they bring different skills to the table. So, Sia herself brings all the kind of, the technical knowledge in terms of skincare and the laser clinic look and feel, the machinery. She's actually created her own machines in this business and everything. So she's done amazing things. And her business partner brought more the goals, strategy, action planning, obviously the money, and the more financial end of things. So they do very different things in the business, but they complement each other really, really well. And it's this whole bringing together, as I've talked about before, of masculine and feminine energies within business, and how when you bring those together in a really good way, it actually results in a more grounded and more stable business, and a more sustainable and profitable business actually as well. So, obviously it's not easy for all of us to find a business partner like that. But I guess if you are going out and looking for business partners, always remember to look for somebody who's got different skills to you, but complementary skills to you. And you're always looking for someone who can complement and bring that skill set to the table that you don't currently have. So the second part of this kind of team point, I guess, is that Sia also has realised that she can't do all the work herself within there, and she invested early, and she brought on the right team members. And she said sometimes in the beginning, when we're thinking about this, particularly as women, I think we try to do everything ourselves. We try to believe that we don't have the money to hire someone, so therefore we try and do everything ourselves. And what ends up actually happening is we become totally overwhelmed, underpaid, exhausted, and then that results in total resentment. And that actually can send your business down quite a lot, because even though you might not be showing it, that is the energy that you're putting into the business, and that is coming out towards the client base. So you've got to be really careful that you don't fall into that kind of trap and thinking that I can't hire someone now because I haven't made the money. Sometimes you actually have to step up and hire someone, and hire a bit of a team around you so that you can cope and you can drive the vision forward. I guess this is getting to the whole thing of not being so busy working in your business that you've got no time to work on your business and to lead your business. And I guess that brings me on to my second point, which is all about leadership. And I've talked about this in a previous podcast after I interviewed Alessia Marini, who coaches mainly women on feminine leadership in their own businesses. And I think one of the keys with this leadership piece is recognizing that the team is very, very important. So, if you're going to really drive a business forward, then it's not about motivating a team or hiring a team. It's about hiring them and then leading that team so that they are actually inspired and want to follow you and actually want to follow your vision, and making sure that they're on the same page as you. That's really, really key. And I guess getting a good business vision in place and then sharing that business vision with your staff is of utmost importance. So how Sia's done this really, really well, she seems to have this team they're all so on board with the You by Sia brand and the philosophy behind the brand. And they all walk and talk the brand really, and the philosophy. When you walk into the clinic, it's very apparent that they're all on the same page. And also Sia said that sometimes, again, getting back to this wanting to do everything ourselves thing, we often feel like, but nobody could ever do it as well as me. And, she suffered this in her business too, this thinking where you have this vision and you think, well, if I'm really going to execute this vision, I should really do it myself, because how can anybody ever do it as well as me? But she said, what she's had to do is it's this letting go process. And leadership is actually all about delegating and letting go. And recognizing that, yes, maybe the next person isn't going to do it the same way as you do it, but they might actually do it better, or they might bring something that you haven't thought about, and a way to do things better that you haven't thought about. So again, this is stepping into a leadership role and allowing others the space and the energy and the time to explore how they would do it, and to inspire them to step up and think about, the best ways to do it. The other thing about leadership is, in terms of, and actually I loved this point she made, she's got a very, very client-focused business. Now, we all like to say that we've got client-focused businesses, but here's how Sia does it. I was asking her about competition and how does she stay ahead of the game in terms, she's a leader in the industry. How does she stay ahead of her competition? Because it's a very cutthroat world in the laser skin and cosmetic sort of clinic area. And she said, by not focusing on her competition, she doesn't focus on them. I mean, obviously she knows kind of what they're doing, but if you spend your time and energy focusing on what your competition are doing, you end up becoming one of the herd, and then you end up a follower and not a leader. So how she gets around this, which I just love, this is brilliant, is, focusing on what does the client actually want? What's the customer experience? That the customer is going to delight the customer, make them a raving fan, bring them back for more, make them a loyal customer for life. And then she focuses everything in the business very much around delivery on that and constantly improving that, so that she really truly gets this client-focused experience. So, I'd urge you to really think about that and go, sometimes we spend a lot of time thinking about what our competitors are doing, when really that's kind of a waste of energy. It's a mug's game. While you have to be aware, if you want to be a leader, then you need to be kind of looking outside of that. And that's kind of petty in a way, looking at your competitors. It's more thinking about what's the future of your business? What's the future of your industry? Where are the customers looking? What are the clients looking for? What are they wanting? And then delivering on that. And that makes you a leader. So, getting on to my sort of third key takeout, and this is one I really do want to focus on a little bit for a minute too. It's this concept of, women and risk taking. And again, I've spoken to a few guests about this that I've had on the show. We talked about, is it that as women, we are less open to taking risk? And why is that the case? Because men seem to be more in tune with taking risk than we are. And Sia brought up an absolutely fascinating point, which I absolutely loved. She talked about the fact that there's a lot of fear in women attached to this. It comes from a place of fear. And that resonated with me. I totally get that. But then she said that sometimes this fear we feel this as women because we have that instinctual, that intuitive response. And as women, we're not really harnessing or listening and becoming in tune with that instinctual response, our intuition. So when something comes up and we go, the vision, I can see the vision, this is what I really want to achieve. The fear comes up because we don't have the numbers to back it up, or the strategy, or how it's all going to play out. And we struggle to listen to that sort of intuitive part of ourselves, the knowing, the deep down knowing that you want to do this and that this is going to be a success and that this is the right path. So as women, we've kind of not lost this ability, but we're slightly disconnected from figuring out, fear is basically obstacles. And are you putting obstacles up by yourself, or are those obstacles really there? I just loved that. And, I think I'm going to do some blogging on this actually, because I think this is this real feminine energy in business, and the trust factor and the knowing factor. And actually I was chatting with Lisa Messenger from Renegade Collective about this last week as well, and she had commented that she actually, at this point that she's at, doesn't really want to bring investors on board, because she feels like some of the crazy ideas she comes up with and the knowing that she just has, that this is how it has to happen, that they won't be able to cope with that, because they'll want to see the numbers and they'll want to see the strategy plan and how it's all going to happen. And it's a bit fly by the seat of your pants type behaviour. But as women, we do have this inbuilt ability to tap into that. And I guess as men do too. It's not just a women versus men thing. But as women, we need to, step into our confidence a little bit with this when it comes to business and investing, and follow our intuition a little bit more, listen to it, and really learn to tap into it and to tune into it, and then to let it guide us in business, because we're actually going pretty well with it when we do tune into it. Okay, so I think that's a powerful point to end the show on today, and I hope that you have got a few bits and pieces out of that. Look, if this idea of, being more intuitive in business, or being more of a woman in business and running business and making money as a woman really appeals to you, I'm about to launch Get Savvy Academy, which is my online training program. And you can hear all about that over on my website at energizewealth.com. And be sure to get on the mailing list for the early bird to hear about the early bird launch of that, which is coming up soon. It would be great if you could join us for that program. There's going to be a big community of women doing that program together, so it's going to be exciting. So also, if you love the show, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below, or even better, if you could subscribe to it over on iTunes and leave us a review and a rating. That would really help the show to get out to more people. And that would be absolutely brilliant, because this is really a community that we're trying to build here to, get more people awakening into this wealth thing and what we can do with wealth and why we need to be embracing wealth. Come back next week when I'm actually going to be having a really interesting conversation with a woman called Dr. Nikki Goldstein, who is a sex coach. She's a sex therapist, and we're going to be talking about the connection between money, power, and sex. Interesting conversation. I'll see you then.
Thanks for tuning in. Come and join us on energizewealth.com to continue the conversation. Get your free video training, 7 Steps to Energized Wealth, and watch the video interviews that were the inspiration behind this episode.